2001, somewhere around there. I've been doing this about 16 years or so. And so the one thing I would really avoid, which I am avoiding right now, is to really be mindful of where the money goes when you make the money, because we're all hunters, right? We all always want the next one and the next one and the next one. So I think you really got to dive into your numbers, dive into your P&Ls, dive into where the money's going every month. Every 3, 4, 5 months is try to reanalyze. Hey, is this working or not working? Am I being consistent with it? So I can really measure it. So I would say, count the money, measure, and the big thing is systems too. I really believe in having the right systems in place, and it's really by not having those systems in place, then you start doing those peaks and valleys. So, but that comes down to people, So there's so many different ways I could take this. You just take me where you want to go here, on this interview.
Well, I guess we can talk about that next. Is the systems and the people part. I mean, you've tried, I think, almost every coaching program in America, almost every piece of software known to the mortgage lending industry.
Not as much as you on that part.
Well, maybe not in the software, but as far as seeking help and as far as being open to ideas, you subscribe to a similar philosophy that I do, and that I always say that and not to I don't want to rip on anybody that has this as a mantra, but I kind of say that there really isn't a ton of super secret sauce and tricks in this business, because the best LOs and the people that I know that truly crush it, they have a way of finding out what is working and not is working, or paying someone else to teach them. It's not really that secret. It's only secret because perhaps somebody couldn't afford to pay for it, or they decided not to pay for it. But wanting to find what works and what doesn't work I think is more of an internal decision and less of an external circumstance. And the folks that really want to learn how to build and grow, they run right in, like we say, run into the fire hose. They try a bunch of things out. They talk to a bunch of people. They try different, coaches and companies and mentors and all that kind of stuff. And they eventually find what works for them. Mm-hmm. So, my big question to you would be, in doing all these things that you do, how have you been able to extract little bits and pieces without getting completely overwhelmed by shiny objects and new trends and all that stuff, and focus on what really works for your team in the systems that you want?
That's a great question, because the things I've learned something from each coach, and so I think that's important to really, pull out, because sometimes, coaches are going to move on, and you're going to move on from your coaches, It's just the way it goes, and that's the way your growth goes. But I think the overarching theme, Mike, that I have learned is being consistent, and sometimes that's very tough, because you got this tool out there, and all of a sudden this thing has come up, and all of a sudden there's a webinar coming here, and there's a lot of stuff. But the key is to be consistent, because you can't measure anything unless you're consistent, So to run into a program and test it out, you really need some time to do that. You really need to be consistent to really measure it. And then from that point, you can figure out, hey, this is what I want to do with my business. Because, we've talked about this before, every coaching program is not for everybody, but what I take little pieces here and there, and there's, coaching program, over here that's all about calling people. But what if you sprinkled some technology on top of that? What does that look like? So that's kind of what we have done in really, kind of break out the days of, okay, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, okay? Because I think that's important to know what you're supposed to be doing on there. But also sprinkle in, hey, here's some technology with it and everything else, because I got a lot of business from Facebook, and some coaching programs don't even talk about that, which is crazy to me. So you really have to figure out where's the trends going without getting off the tracks too much, and still have kind of guardrails on there on, each day. Our LOs are, every day you're supposed to be doing X amount of this, X amount of that, and me too, by the way. And by doing that and figuring out, hey, this is actually working along with Facebook and along with, some of this other stuff, is very, very important. You have to do that. And so you don't turn around 6 months from now and say, crap, what have I done for half the year? I've been floating around playing defense and not offense.
One thing that came up yesterday, I was talking to a producer that's done similar things to you, and what we kind of came, and I don't remember which one of us said it, but I think it was a combined, thing that we mentioned was if we can combine simplicity and structure in our business and layer on top of that and add to that complexity and systems, that's a good high level philosophical way to think about what we do. If we don't have the simplicity in the structure in place with with our team and with our schedule and with the way that we approach our business, adding in that complexity and technology and all these great ideas on top of that, that foundation just crumbles.
Yeah.
And that's where you and I have talked a lot about this, and I've watched you grow. And there's been times where both of us have tried to add too many complex technical tasks on top of a system that wasn't able to handle it because we didn't have that base in place. So, I think that's a different way of saying it than you and I have ever discussed, but we've talked about that a lot. And I think that the other piece I definitely want to ask you about, I think it's important in it, I always say I care more about the loan officer than the logo on their shirt, but we talk also about picking a model that works for you. And, you've found a model that works for you right now. How does your search for the model play into being able to pull off coming back? And I guess, and this is I mentioned this when we previewed this call. You basically moved from Florida to Tennessee. Now you lived there before, but you had nothing. I mean, you had no hot connections. It was just old connections from a long time ago. You just had hustle and you had skill, and you just said, "Heck with it, we're moving back to Tennessee." So how does this deciding to relocate and plug into a new company and build all this new stuff, how does this all fit together and make Gregg happy? Because Gregg has tried everything under the sun, and now he's shouting from the rooftop that he's super happy, and he wouldn't do it any other way.
Wow, that's a lot. Let me just think of.
It was like the worst asked question ever.
No, it was. I think I know where we're going here, but no, it's basically moving back. Let's talk about the moving back to Tennessee, right? So basically, I know if I'm consistent and I work hard, and people say that all the time, but I mean, if I'm consistent and work hard, I know eventually I'm going to start cracking in certain places, right? Because once again, it's about being consistency. It's about, you could be going after XYZ agents for 12 months and you cannot get them, but it could be that perfect timing, okay? And the timing could be, hey, a deal fell through and this fell through and this and that, and now you're sitting there. So when we moved back to Tennessee, I knew that. It was just a matter of time because I knew that we're going to be consistent, that we're going to work hard and get the systems in place. So shouting from the mountaintops, we're in a real good spot right now. We have very good underwriting. We have a very good team with us. We have good people. We have some more good people coming on. I just had another one start today. She's been in the business 27 years and everything else. So going through this process over 16 years, I've hired and fired more people than most, and a lot of it's been my fault because I've hired the wrong way. But when you start seeing the right people come into place, you start getting the systems down, getting in the flow, and it makes things, it compounds itself, okay? So yeah, it might, from the outside, might look like, hey, he's doing a lot, and it is a lot, not just me, the whole team is, but the thing is that it's really cool because once you start finding the right people and you start getting the right systems in place and being consistent, things just start happening. I mean, we've gotten a lot of pre-approvals this week, and we just, we just locked in, I think, 2 people today that we weren't even planning on locking in. Things just start happening where you don't really plan on happening. And it's from having the right team, from being consistent, the coaching programs that I've been a part of your program, which has been phenomenal, learning how to generate business, and providing something. And this is important, I think, because just for an example today, I'm competing against 3 other companies here, and we're probably going to win the deal. They're doing the same usual thing of doing it to a client. Well, I've sent them a video. I've sent them a breakdown of graphs and charts of 3 or 4 different options. I have did a personal video between, just showing, and breaking down each one of these options. And I've sent them kind of the bond market. I've gone above and beyond compared to these other people, and we're probably going to win that deal just from doing that. So, that's a coaching thing that I've learned, how to do a mortgage presentation. That's something that I put in place 6-7 years ago. And, we still lose deals just like everybody else. It's just a business, But at the same time, I win a lot more from putting these systems in place. So I take pieces, I guess to answer your question, I take pieces from each coaching program and we put them together. And, right now, the coaching program I'm with right now, I'm learning from people who are making $750, $1 million a year. How are they doing that? And like going back to your point, being simplistic, knowing what to do, being clear, and then on top of that, trying to compound that with your team and try to expand on that and try to leverage that. Does that make sense?
It's okay. I mean, we all know it's the core. I mean, they got a history of taking guys that are at your level and pushing them even higher. I've never claimed to have that skill. I think it's fantastic that they focus so hard on the customer service and the systems and all the stuff that you and I have chatted about. Them helping you with. I guess one thing that I've been trying to figure out is that you recently just seem to have pep in your step over something, some kind of system that you changed recently. Is it the customer service part? Is that the part of it, or is it more the upfront? I mean, the upfront stuff, it's basically getting your application in perfect order. I mean, you might have got that from Hustle or from Marketing Animals or just from people beating it over your head, but you've got like super rigid checklist for your team on what has to happen before the pre-approval goes out, how it happens when it comes in. You got this stuff all laid out. But lately, it seems like you're super excited about what happens after the contract gets accepted.
And yes, you're exactly right. Thanks for bringing it up, because kind of what we have done is I've had it in my head for a while. I've done it certain times. But when you don't have the right people to help you implement that, you get stretched very thin if you're by yourself in this business and you're doing 3 or 4 loans a month. The fourth loan, you're pretty much maxed out if you're doing everything. That's kind of, well, when you're doing a lot more than that and you still can't get to that customer service and put them above and beyond, it's very frustrating. Well, now we've got the right people and now we've got the right system. So what we do, we call it the white glove service right now. So we've been, telling people about this for the last 6 to 8 weeks, and with the feedback we've been getting from clients and from realtors and from everybody has been phenomenal, because what we have done is take a lot off the buyer's plate. Okay, so we help them change their utilities. We get them 3 insurance quotes. We help them set up the alarm system. We help them with termite. I mean, we help them with a bunch of different things that most people don't help their clients with, because it's not because they don't want to. I think it's just because they haven't known about it, or they get too busy and they don't have the right people to help them. And then when the file goes into our system, we communicate 15 to 25 times throughout the whole process. And then, but something else I want to do is that we start gifting our clients. So at underwriting approval, we send them a box of chocolates that is branded and everything else. So we send it there at that point. It has made the process, and we're pretty streamlined, but it's made the process even better because, I tell my guys and gals all the time, they're not in the mortgage bubble like we are. We're in this little cocoon, right, that we walk in and this is all we think about. People are out there working 24/7. They don't see and they don't deal with this all the time, So anything we could do to take that edge off a little bit and to make that process more seamless is really, really helped us. And the feedback we have gotten has been phenomenal. So,
love it. So you also have started spending time learning how to market and build outside of your geographic footprint. I mean, you originally had a good footprint in Florida. You moved to Tennessee. You kind of kept that going. But you decided that being tied to one market or one geographic location wasn't something you ever wanted to do again. Now, a lot of folks that I talk to, I mean, they get frustrated with the complexity of it all. They get overwhelmed at staying licensed. What kind of advice would you have when it comes to that?
Well, I would say, first and foremost, don't take your eyes off your own market. Obviously, focus on that. And when you focus on that and you got that system in place, what to do with that, then maybe branch out to a different market and get licensed in a different market. So how I've done that, is leveraging the platform of social media. I mean, there's no other way to do that. I mean, I had a whole team in Tampa just call me 2 days ago of 10 people. They're so frustrated with their local lenders. They've seen me. They're in my Facebook group. I've been talking about everything that we're doing, providing information. They have reached out to me directly. And now they've already sent us 2 deals already that we're working on, within the last 48 hours. So, there's different ways to do it. I would say don't get stretched too thin. Excuse me, because I've done that. But I would say, find out what markets like you like to be in. Everybody says California, which is a great market, but it's very competitive out there. So you better be prepared to sharpen your pencil, because they're going to get 18 quotes on you. So you have to be very, very prepared for that, and understand, what kind of market that you're going into. But basically, I'm licensed in 8 states right now. Do we do a lot of mortgages in each one of those states? No, we do some, but we do more in some other ones. Probably 4 out of the 8 we do most of our loans in. But it's really not that complex, to be honest with you. But I would just say, find out what markets that you want to be in, and really start connecting with these people, on Facebook and different platforms, and just start building that relationship, just like you do with anything else. And eventually, naturally, it comes to you.
Now, yeah, I know some 50 staters that are, they're at banks, but they don't do 50 states. Yeah. But they do have a fair amount of market in 1 or 2 states because, like you said, because of the networking. Whether it's, I was meeting with David Goldberg from Ohio, and he was doing a lot of business in California and Florida, not because he intentionally tried to market there, because he had just had 1 or 2 transactions with folks who clicked with him. Mm-hmm. And he, at the time he was a 50-stater, so he just kept pushing that, and it turned into additional introductions in the same, state, and just snowballed a little bit to the point where, wow, you're doing a lot of loans in Florida. And it's like, well, it's not like he ran ads there. It was old school hustle and marketing. Yep. And like you said, you just realized at one point you were closing your mind to the concept of leaving your geographic footprint because of, not being a 50-stater now.
Well, yeah, and the thing too, Fish, the one thing that's really happened to me before the mortgage collapse, did really well in Florida, made high 6 figures, everything was hunky-dory. After that collapse, I've learned a ton of what not to do. We talked about that earlier. But I always said, I'm not going to just be in one state. I'm never going to let that happen again. Okay, mm-hmm. And because each state is kind of different when something like that happens. I'm not saying it's going to happen again that drastic, but markets turn, and it's just a natural cycle of things. So I made, I vowed to myself, I'm never going to be stuck in one market and go through that again. So
right, I completely get it. So I promised people that we're going to start to make these shorter, more concise, just because people don't have an hour to watch. Knocking things out in 20 or 30 minutes. So if you, again, we're on the clock 10 years ago, 15 years ago, whatever the heck it was, newer LO, somebody perhaps slightly more seasoned, trying to build and grow and build a branch, what would you tell them to do if they were at 3 to 4 units and wanted to get to 10? Perhaps we're sitting at 50, 60, 70 grand. I wanted it to break 100 for the first time. What should they focus on the most? What would be the most important things they need to do in the next 3 to 6 months?
Hiring. I would hire an assistant. Mm-hmm. If you have 4 loans or somewhere around there. The benchmark across that I have seen is usually 6 to 7 back-to-back months. So if you have 4, maybe not yet, but when you get up to that consistent 6 to 7 loans 2 months in a row, I would definitely hire somebody to help you start taking applications immediately. Because right. I mean, how many applications do you take that don't work out? Because of credit or something else like that. And I've heard both sides of the argument, and I agree with some on both sides, to be honest with you. But for me, if it's for me, that is a data-taking type of activity. And then you can groom that person and say, okay, now we took the application here, let's go deeper on these questions. These are things. So if you have a good person who's very knowledgeable, who's very smart, who can learn fast, they know the right questions to ask. I mean, I brought on Carla here a month and a half ago, and she's a machine. I mean, she's already understands what questions to ask and everything else. That's going to save you a boatload of time. If somebody has a tough credit score, she knows how to direct that person where I don't even really talk to them, but we do help them, and we follow up with them. They put them in our CRM, and we're checking in with them once a month with our credit team. If there's somebody that we could get above 620, then what she does is do a credit analyzer and gets that taken care of, gives them advice, goes over everything with them. I touch base with them, and then we're following up with them once a week on that. So those are things that can redirect your time where you can really leverage on your highest payoff activities. So when somebody's doing 3 or 4, I would say you're just there, maybe not yet, depending on what market that you're in. If you're in California doing 3 or 4, it's a big difference than maybe doing somewhere else. But I think when you get up to the 5 or 6 or 7 on back-to-back months, you really need to hire somebody to really take a lot off your plate. I'm a big guy where big thinker when it comes to what can I get off my plate where I can spend time on the highest payoff activity. And to me, right off the bat, and I learned this 6-7 years ago, is if you got somebody help you take applications, that is absolutely huge. You're still the face of the organization. You're still the face of the team. But basically, that has really helped us, on top of that, put other systems in place. Now we've got the gifting program. We've got the white glove service program. We've got this. And she helps me with all that, too, on top of that. So you really need to get somebody to really leverage and really expand your team and the name. So
okay.
Make sense?
So I don't think we ever really talked about, like, I told everybody to tell me your story. Like you were in the business, you had a crash, you dealt with a mortgage meltdown, and then you're in Florida and you relocated to Tennessee. You came to Tennessee with pretty much nothing, and that was just roughly 2 years ago. You had pretty much no business. Where are you sitting at today? How many people do you have on your team, and what are you guys normally doing?
Well, we've got, let me see, we got Carl, we got Devin, we've got another guy coming on our team up here, and we have somebody else coming. So we're going to have 5 people on our team here in Tennessee. And in Florida, we've got 4 down there, okay? So we are, right now, we're $3.5 million, somewhere around there, 3.5, 4 million. Our goal is to be up to 5 million consistently. We're doing kind of a roller coaster right now. So we're not, but we tickled 5 million with a much smaller team last year. So we have somebody coming on board here the next 30 days. He's doing $1 million to $1.5 million a month. So that's going to push us. We have somebody else coming on board too in the next 2 to 3 weeks. That's doing another $1 million consistently. So these are producers plugging into our system. So we should be hitting 5 million a month, as far as our team. So
you built this off basically like just yourself. You had nothing when you came back, and you came back, you started hustling, you started hiring, you started building, you plugged into a place that realized you're going to do it. They gave you a budget and said, here you go, rock and roll. And I mean, now you've built it in less than 2 years.
Well, yeah, I mean, I've had a lot of help. I mean, I've had people really, trust me. And, our mortgage company, Johnny Fowler and everybody else, they had faith in me. Sometimes I was wondering why, because, you're sitting here, you're like, oh man, I got to start from scratch again. And I had some connections, but it really was, you had to build a lot of these relationships. Again, a lot of my, some relationships weren't there. They just moved on and did everything else. So, I really, the first year being back, I kept it pretty skinny. A lot of things, I basically kept the budget tight, kept everything tight. I'm still that way, but we kind of expanded it a little bit. And basically just started kind of just rolling with it and working hard and getting up early, going to bed late, the typical things that people have to do to get a business going. And we're still far away from where I want to be, but we really, the last month, a year and a half, we've really, made some positive strides.
Cool.
It comes down to people. I mean, you have to have the right people. I mean, we could talk about systems all day long. We could talk about this program, this shiny tool, and this, that. If you don't have the right people, forget it. It's not going to work. And I've talked to a guy who owns 7 restaurants around here, and he's an awesome business guy. And we talk about it all the time. Think about 7 restaurants dealing with those type of people, which is hardworking people. But basically, you're dealing with a lot of different personalities and everything else. So I think the key is the sooner when you're ready to take that first step, really get with somebody who's done, the right things and the wrong things, really help you make that right hire. It's very, very difficult. We've talked about that
like
before.
You said, avoiding the wrong things is sometimes the most important step. You need to move forward. You've heard a lot of ideas on what the right things are, but knowing what the wrong things are is super critical. So
it's very important.
I appreciate you sharing a good half an hour of your time with us. Anybody in the ML network, if you have questions about how Gregg built solid branch. I mean, he was at LO before, for many years, but starting out and really just rebuilding killer systems has been what's impressed me a lot in the last couple of years. And like I commented and posted, talked about waking up early, getting at it, hiring coaches, paying attention to other LOs, networking, hiring people, all this kind of stuff. It all plays together. So, hopefully inspiring you, keeping you on track. giving you guys some good tips as to what to do and what not to do. Anything else, bud?
I think that's it, man. If anybody needs to reach out to me, feel free to reach out to me. I'm willing to help anybody. I'm at a point in my career, 46 years old, where it's funny because I was telling my wife the other day, I think everybody's still older than me, when I walk into a room and I come to find out I'm the oldest in a lot of the rooms. So I've come to a point right now where if you need any help or anything else, shoot me a message. Let's get you on the calendar. Let's take a half hour. I'll tell you some things. I'll send you some stuff. I've been through a lot of pain, years ago going through this. So I can hopefully help you avoid making the same mistake. So
I dig it.